Hello there, and welcome to Heff's ranking of the top 10 boss battles in the Kingdom Hearts series. For this list, I attempted to compile what are objectively the 10 best bosses in the series. However, when it comes down to it, this is still my personal opinion. I decided to rank these fights based on a few metrics that I feel are critically important when it comes to KH bosses. And also, I just wanted to make this ranking harder on myself. Each boss will receive a number score from 1 to 10 in 3 different categories, including story, based on how significant and impactful the fight is, difficulty, which is more about how balanced the fight is. A good challenge is appreciated, but hard does not equal a 10 out of 10 if it is not a balanced and fair fight. Cough, 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 cough. And finally, the music, because let's be honest, these fights would not feel nearly as impactful without those sick-ass boss themes from our goddess, Yoko Shimomura. Also, data battles will not be included in this list, as they technically don't have any story significance, and let's be honest, they would take up most of this list. And spoilers, nothing's going to rank below a 6 because all of these are the best bosses, which might even bring into question why make it a 1 to 10 ranking anyway, why put it on that kind of metric if nothing's going to rank below a 6, but maybe I'll use this metric in the future for a different video if I do this again. Okay, thanks, bye. Okay, and now, onto the list. Number 10. Aqua vs. Terra-Xehanort, Birth by Sleep. Might be a controversial pick to start, but you can't deny the significance that this fight has within the KH story. Aqua proves herself as a true master here, as we knock her ex-best friend around into the next goddamn decade. He's unfortunately not too difficult for what is technically the true final boss of the game, unless you count Red Eyes, which I do not. However, difficulty in BBS can be a slippery slope, as higher difficulty can often mean more BS, which this fight thankfully doesn't really have other than the very small windows where you actually get to punish this guy. But many commands allow you to close the gap on him quickly, and all of the magic options in this game will let you get in damage from afar, even if he's not giving you a window to attack. Also, the music and atmosphere here are just incredible. The music here is Dismiss, which is very reminiscent of Destati, Ansem's theme, which is very thematically fitting since Terra-Xehanort makes use of Ansem's Guardian, along with some of Ansem's KH1 moveset. There's also this really great bit where if the Guardian grabs you, you work together with Terra to free you from its grasp. Almost like there's a piece of Terra still alive inside of Terra-Xehanort, or inside of the Guardian. It's this fight that sets the events of the entire series into motion. If only she had just let her friend drown in that pile of his own darkness, then Sora wouldn't have to go on 19 different journeys, and his mom wouldn't be worried sick, wondering where he's been all this time. Number 9. Xion, 358 over 2 days. Did someone say controversial pick? The emotional weight of fighting your best friend turned evil is something that surprisingly falls on the shoulders of every Kingdom Hearts protagonist, and Roxas is no exception. This fight is so emotional, as Vector to the Heavens blares in the background, which is a boss fight arrangement of Xion's main theme, which is of course much softer and quieter than this version. Now before you yell at me for ranking the music at an 8, only Xion's last phase uses Vector to the Heavens, and all of her previous phases unfortunately just use tracks recycled from most other bosses in the game. So I did have to knock it down a couple points for that, which is completely arbitrary anyway. These points don't matter. But hey, it's a great fight. There's, of course, some jank that comes with this game being on the DS and, not having access to a joystick, and she does refuse to stagger, ever. But it's still a balanced fight where you'll get ample time to hit her while she winds up for these long charging attack animations. Also, she just looks cool as hell, makes it way easier to kick her ass until we realize that, oh yeah, right, this was our best friend that we were killing. This scene hurts, man. Number 8. Sora and Kairi vs. Xehanort, KH3. This fight is incredible, and finally being able to play as Kairi for such a climactic fight feels amazing. Her attacks are really quick and snappy, and she feels powerful, but one of her battle quotes is literally, "Please work!" Yeah, she knows she's out of her element here, and she's just crossing her fingers. It's awesome. Her team-up attack with Sora is beautiful and powerful, both emotionally and damage-wise. And it's a super challenging fight where the scale just feels huge, as Xehanort rains these enormous meteors down on our heads, enough to destroy our own planet 5 times over. Dodging these while also being prepared to block his next incoming attacks feels rewarding as hell. This feels like the true final boss to KH3, unless you count this Xehanort, which I do not. The only detractor here is that I don't love the music, Dark Domination, It's definitely fine, but it was also already used for Xehanort's other final form in base KH3. A different, more impactful track would have been nice, but we got so many other amazing arrangements in the Remind DLC that I really can't complain. Number 7, Ansem Phase II, KH1. I know, another non-KH2 boss, but don't worry, they're coming. I chose this phase of Ansem in particular because it feels like the perfect challenge and test of your combat abilities. It's tough, but easily learnable. This guy is definitely beatable without taking a single hit. And that's how you know that it's fair, because when bosses start whipping out these unreactable attacks and unavoidable damage, that's how you know it's a bad boss. But this fight would never dream of doing that. This is a 1v1, so you can't rely on your party members to take any of the heat, or to heal you. It's just you and Ansem, the final boss, the big bad, and it's just you and him in this dome, which looks like a segment from the end of the world that just sprouted up in the middle of Destiny Islands. Very cool.
Very cool. Very cool.
Very cool.
I feel like KH1 Ansem's boss fight goes on for much too long after this phase, with lots of filler mob fights, and his final 2 phases that make you fight with the flying mechanics, which you're going to be much less familiar with, compared to here, where it's boots on the ground, with access to every ability you've gotten used to using throughout the game. You know, like guarding and dodging. The music here is also as epic as it should be. And honestly, with this fight's mechanics, this could have been the final phase, and I would have been satisfied. It sort of feels like it has this air of finality to it, with it being a 1v1 against the guy that, you know, took your best friends away. Just remove the pointless dark side battle before this fight, and have it take place somewhere that feels a bit more climactic, like on the platform next to the Door to Darkness. Can you imagine how cool that would have been? I guess you'll be left just imagining it. Number 6, Lingering Will, KH2. I know. I'm also shocked that he's this high up on the list, but that's just a testament to how good the rest of these fights are. This is a nearly perfect super boss. The mystery behind this dude is incredible. You may not know it when you first fight him, but the future story significance that this random knight in the desert possesses is enough to melt your brain like a sea salt ice cream on a particularly hot day while the sun sets red, because that's the color that travels the farthest. What was I saying? Oh, yeah, this fight rocks. KH secret bosses rock your world, ensuring that you'll remember them when they come back in a big way, and this fight is no exception. His armor mechanic is particularly interesting, which requires you to get in full combos in order to deal any real damage, as just hitting him twice and running away will do literally nothing. But you better get a sense of his revenge value, because hitting him for too long will trigger a counterattack that'll mess you up in a big way. There are a couple ways to cheese this boss, but without knowing those, you better be damn sure you know how to play KH2, because otherwise, this boss will wreck you. It's easily the hardest boss in the game, and it will take multiple tries to beat, especially considering the time it takes to memorize the patterns of his desperation move alone. Rage Awakened is the song that plays during this fight, and unfortunately, it has been used way too much in KH nowadays, considering the 10 different KH3 trailers it was featured in. But when this track wasn't overused, it was incredibly hype and really helped to sell the mystery and excitement behind this battle. Number 5, Roxas vs. Axel, KH2. This fight hits really different after you've played Days. The weight behind this boss is insane, but even if you aren't familiar with Axel yet, this fight still works incredibly well, as there's still lots of intrigue and mystery regarding these two's relationship. Plus, it's the culmination of the entire Twilight Town segment where Axel pops up multiple times. But it also functions as a sort of tutorial or introduction to what drive forms will be like in KH2, as Roxas whips out the Oathkeeper and Oblivion and lets us go all dual wield on his ass. Which, let's be honest, I bet Axel was really into it. It's not too tough of a fight, but that's intentional since you're kinda meant to feel like a badass here. But it's still got some unique mechanics like the flames that surround the arena, a burning floor that slowly saps your HP, a reaction command that removes the lava floor, as well as a really cool dodge keyblade throw reaction command. All of this on top of the iconic 13th struggle track which accompanies this battle. Easily a great fight. Number 4, the Xehanort trio, KH3. Are you prepared to step into the Nort court? I wasn't a huge fan of the Keyblade graveyard fights in KH3 because most of those bosses didn't really combo and synergize with each other much, and they weren't too hard, but holy shit, this fight is so good. Teaming up with Riku and Mickey makes perfect sense, as they're each rivals with Ansem and Xemnas, respectively. This 3v3 feels incredibly dramatic, capping off over a decade of story as we finally take out 3 of the major villains from throughout the series. Many of their combos string into each other, including their desperation move, which is tough to learn, but feels great to survive through once you learn the pattern. These guys feel like a well-oiled machine, so they're very scary to approach at times, while you wait for the right opening. But the payoff is huge once you start getting combos in on any one of them. Though I did find that Xemnas is particularly hard to stagger. Mickey and Riku are also incredibly valuable teammates here, as they draw aggro off of you and deal pretty good damage. They do still go down fairly easily, but you may want to watch your positioning when you cure so you can pick one of them back up, in order to take some of the heat off of you from the Nort trio. But hey, the theme here, Forza Finale, is one of my favorite songs in the entire Kingdom Hearts series. Layering the main themes of young Xehanort, Ansem, and Xemnas into one epic orchestral theme is incredibly genius, and it just sounds so good. This honestly could have been the theme for the final boss of the game, and I would have been fine with it. This song just makes the whole fight feel so much more intense and high stakes. But it's a really satisfying fight, and it feels good to finally take these guys down, and it almost feels bittersweet to say goodbye to these guys forever. I mean, as long as they actually stay dead this time. Number 3. Final Xemnas KH2. How else should you end a game where you spend the entire campaign looking for your best friend? By fighting to the death alongside that best friend against an evil tyrant in a battle that defies all of time and space, of course. Number 3 particularly refers to his final form for the music, setting, design change for Xemnas, and the incredibly iconic moments when we take control of Riku, and when we, through the power of teamwork, sheer luck, and just mashing X and triangle a bunch of times, we block like 1,000 lasers being shot at us. Yeah, man, no, go ahead, keep trying to hit us. You cannot.
You cannot.
This fight caps off the entire arc of Sora and Riku's relationship, as we see them finally come together after the conflict between them in the first game. But honestly, I'm fine with all of the previous phases Xemnas has before this one, which is strange because I'm not a huge fan of all of Ansem's phases in KH1. I probably prefer this one because of all of the gameplay shakeups, thanks to the reaction commands allowing you to trigger some of Riku's moves, as well as being able to jump off of floating buildings and slice them in half. This whole battle feels like a war of attrition, which culminates in a fantastic battle and a well-earned, very heartfelt ending to KH2, which again pays off the arc of Sora and Riku's relationship after all the conflicts between them in the first game. Number 2, Yozora, KH3. I'm just going to be honest, guys. This fight broke my metric for this ranking. The mystery behind this dude from a video game within Toy Box suddenly being real and kinda sorta knowing who Sora is leaves me with no idea of how relevant this dude will be in the upcoming KH4. But I'm going to venture a guess that, yeah, he's very important, but only time will tell. Still, this is a perfect boss fight. He's got an incredibly varied moveset and combos that come out really fast, though sometimes he just delays his moves in order to throw off your timing, so that's cool. He has tons of openings, but it takes a lot of experimentation to find them.
That's what she said.
He can steal your Kupo coin if you have one, and then gives you a great big middle finger as he uses it in front of you when you think you killed him, not to mention the gorgeous setting and music for this fight. It's out of this world. Yozora is the answer to people who say that KH3 was too easy. Don't get me wrong, this fight is not impossible, and it is absolutely winnable without taking any damage. But yeah, good luck just earning any victory in general against this guy. This fight is so difficult, easily the hardest, fair boss fight in the entire series. Now, before we get to number 1, I want to throw out a few honorable mentions for bosses that I wanted on this list, but just didn't quite make the cut. Dark Aqua, KH3. The setting and music are amazing for this emotionally resonant battle, but unfortunately, it's pretty easy and not long enough in my opinion. I wish her moveset was even more varied like Phantom Aqua from 0.2. Dark Riku, KH1. This fight is a huge moment for us to finally stick it to Riku in order to protect Kairi after we learn that her heart has been within us for so long. Good fight. I've seen the cutscene before this one about 1,000 times though. Marluxia, Chain of Memories. As a final boss, he definitely doesn't overstay his welcome, with only 3 phases. His music is some of the best in the series, and his mechanic for his final form where he steals all of your cards from your deck, forcing you to run around and pick them all up, is really simple, but unique. And finally, number 1, Sora versus Roxas. I mean, yeah, come on, you saw this coming. This battle is perfect. It's hard as hell your first time around, as Roxas does not hold back one bit. He's got multiple different combos that he can pull out in any order as he's just fighting for his life. It's us versus him in a dramatic battle for who gets to exist. It's intense, yet emotional. The Other Promise is a perfect track for this fight, as it's a more dramatic arrangement of Roxas's simpler and more somber theme, which if you remember from the beginning of this list, Xion's theme was given the exact same treatment. This one hurts. One, because he's going to spend so much time wailing on you, but two, because since we spent so much time playing as him earlier in the game, we empathize with him. And we know he has every right to exist as well. And for those that don't know this is Roxas upon their first encounter, it is heartbreaking when his hood falls to reveal the kid we spent hours just hanging out with in the beginning of the game.
Oh, no. No.
This fight is perfectly dramatic, emotional, and challenging. Literally, the only drawback is, since you're going to be dying so many times, the run back to this boss might make you want to pull your hair out. But the boss itself is just perfect. And the best boss in the Kingdom Hearts series so far. So that is my list. What did you think? Did I miss any? I shockingly had a pretty hard time deciding the specific order for these fights, so you could probably swap a couple of them around, but I don't think it's too controversial to say that these ones listed here are the best. But you know what? Go ahead and tell me I'm wrong in the comments anyway.